Hello, welcome to AFRITALES by Moonlight. Please show us some love by subscribing to our channel, leaving a comment, giving us a like, and sharing with your friends. Your support truly means the world to us. Thank you. Zara Ehima had always been defined by expectations. Every morning, as she strode through the polished corridors of Ehima Group's headquarters, a gleaming skyscraper piercing the Lagos skyline, she felt the invisible weight of her family name. To the world, she was merely chief's daughter, a title that both opened doors and chained her to a gilded legacy. Today, however, as the late afternoon sun bathed the boardroom in gold, Zara sensed an impending change. Moments earlier, she had just delivered a breakthrough pitch for the multinational Pulse Africa campaign, a triumph that should have meant recognition. Instead, as the last echoes of applause died down, her father, the formidable Oba Ehima, interrupted the celebratory chatter with a final, measured sentence. Zara, you have proven your worth. It is time to step into the legacy completely by uniting with a worthy partner. The words fell like a judge's gavel. Zara's heart pounded as she surveyed the somber faces of the board members. She forced a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Partner, you say? She replied carefully, her voice betraying a hint of defiance mixed with resignation. Her father's eyes, dark and unyielding, met hers. Yes. It is not enough to shine among equals. You must also secure alliances that elevate the entire family name. The engagement with Deo Akinwale is the next step. In that charged silence, every congratulatory remark that had punctuated the meeting now stung like a reminder of unfulfilled dreams. Zara's mind raced as she recalled late nights poring over marketing strategies and creative proposals. She had fought for every inch of her identity in that boardroom, yet now she was expected to trade that hard-won independence for another alliance crafted by power and pedigree. Later, alone in her private office with the city's chaos muffled by thick glass, Zara pored over a portfolio of her own ideas, a notebook filled with sketches, branding strategies, and slogans that danced on the edge of revolution. She remembered her mother's gentle insistence that success was something to be defined by one's heart and intuition rather than by inherited titles. But in this world, where every decision was measured by legacy, it had become easier to hide behind the expected. That evening, as she sat at her mahogany desk reviewing the day's events, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Sometimes the rules are not made to be followed. Zara hesitated, heart quickening. Had someone, perhaps a kindred spirit, noticed the fissures in the monolith of her carefully constructed identity? She couldn't tell yet whether it was a message of empathy or a challenge. For the first time in a long while, the night did not feel dark but full of intriguing possibility. At dinner that same night with trusted members of her inner team, Zara remained unusually pensive. I always believed my career was my own, not an extension of my father's ambitions, she confided in Chiamaka, her closest colleague, as they nibbled on small delicacies in the quiet corners of an upscale restaurant. But this feels like a summons to a destiny I never chose. Chiamaka's eyes softened with understanding. Sometimes, destiny isn't a script handed down to us, it's something we write ourselves, even if the pages are stained with expectations. As Zara lay in bed later that night, the murmurs of city life drifting through the open window, she recalled her mother's whispered advice during long childhood nights: true success is the product of passion, not pedigree. Now, in the dark, those words glowed with unexpected urgency. Despite her father's rigid demands, Zara resolved that she would seek the freedom to define her own path. Even if it meant defying everything that had been built for her before. Her internal monologue roiled as the night deepened. I have always been seen but never truly seen, she thought. I will no longer be defined solely by the legacy of my name. The promise of an uncharted future shimmered like a mirage before her, a future in which her choices, not her birth, would dictate her destiny. In that moment of silent rebellion, Zara not only charted a new course for her professional ambitions but also planted the seed of personal revolution. It was a quiet, secret war against destiny, one that would soon draw her into a world of unexpected encounters and electrifying passion. As the city lights blinked below like a circuit board of endless connections, Zara realized, to carve a destiny for herself, she must first break the rule that confined her. And in doing so, she prepared to confront not only the expectations of a powerful family but also the very idea of what it meant to truly live. The very next day, fate nudged Zara toward a moment that would alter the trajectory of her carefully controlled life. In the midst of a hectic day filled with strategy sessions and client calls, Zara's presentation on a new digital campaign suddenly halted, as if the universe itself had paused to draw her attention. Her laptop, usually reliable and lightning fast, froze on a single frame. Frustration began to creep in as the colorful graphics sputtered to a static image. Desperate, Zara clicked her phone to place a support request. Within minutes, a message arrived, "I'm on my way. Tari." The brevity of the message, signed only with an initial and no surname, brought a curious smile to her lips. She'd received technical support countless times before, but none with a mysterious flair. In the quiet hum of the Ehima Group server room, a cavern of blinking lights and softly buzzing racks, Zara found herself not alone. At the far end of the cool, fluorescent-lit space stood Tai Okoye, wearing a charcoal-colored tee and jeans that seemed to blend practicality with style. He moved with a quiet confidence, his eyes bright beneath a mop of curly hair. As he set down his toolbox, his gaze met hers, and an unspoken challenge passed between them. "Laptop suffering a mid-crisis, heh?" Tai began casually, crouching by her workstation to inspect the machine's internals. His fingers danced over the keyboard as if coaxing it back to life. "We could try a reboot, but then you'd be left in suspense. I prefer a more daring approach." Zara raised an amused eyebrow. "Daring approaches aren't usually part of our IT protocols. Should I be worried?" Her tone was light, but she felt a thrill that was entirely new. The everyday frustration was transforming into an intriguing interlude. Tari flashed a playful smile as the screen flickered back to life, revealing a restored presentation. "Worry not. I believe in solving problems, and maybe in adding a bit of fire to them." His words carried a hint of mischief, and as he handed back her laptop, his fingertips grazed hers for a split second. "Thank you," Zara said softly, a warmth blossoming in her chest that had nothing to do with her morning coffee. "You have a way of making technical disasters seem exhilarating." They settled into an easy banter as Tai double-checked the system. "You must be Zara," he stated matter-of-factly after a beat. "I've seen you around. Always in control, always on top of things." She smiled, her eyes flashing with equal parts amusement and challenge. "And you must be the man who fixes what isn't supposed to break. I'm surprised they sent someone who actually understands the art behind the chaos." The conversation spilled over into discussions of technology, creative design, and even the best local eateries for a late-night snack when offices closed down. "Ever wondered why a server room is like the backstage of a rock concert?" Tai mused as he leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "It's messy, electric, full of hidden rhythms that only those in the know can appreciate." Zara chuckled, her earlier frustrations melting away like ice under tropical sun. "I never imagined IT support could be so poetic. Tell me, Tai, do you always compare computer repair to rock and roll?" He grinned. "Only when I meet a strategist who isn't afraid to see the beauty in the chaos. Sometimes, it takes breaking away from the rules to appreciate the real performance behind a system." For a few stolen moments, the monotonous hum of the servers transformed into a soundtrack of potential, a promise of undiscovered revolutions both digital and personal. Zara found herself leaning in, not just for better sound in the cold, stark room but also to capture every nuance of Tai's expression. His eyes, steady and thoughtful, held a spark that defied the sterile lines of corporate expectation. As the clock ticked on, their conversation deepened. Tai confided, "I've always felt like the systems I fix are metaphors for life. Some things are built to last, but many need constant care and, yes, a bit of risk-taking." His words resonated with Zara, stirring memories of whispered promises made to herself when she was a child with dreams that outpaced the reach of propriety. Before they knew it, the routine call of duty dimmed into something far more important, a realization that in every frozen laptop and every flickering server light, life was hinting at the possibility of renewal. When Tari finally packed up his tools with a friendly nod, he left her with one more remark: "Sometimes a malfunction is just the system's way of saying it's time for a change." Zara watched him leave, feeling a mix of exhilaration and uncertainty. That brief encounter had ignited something within her, a spark that she would soon recognize as the first tremor of a revolution in both her career and her heart. As she rejoined the ebb and flow of the busy day, Zara couldn't help but glance at her phone where his cryptic message had already sparked a conversation she knew would reshape the rules of her carefully planned life. In the weeks that followed, Zara found herself juggling two very different worlds. On one side, she played the perfect daughter in the public eye, smiling for photographs, attending exclusive events, and supporting her impending engagement to Deo Akinwale, the polished son of a revered senator. On the other, clandestine encounters with Tai became the secret fuel that fired her dreams and defied expectations. At a glamorous charity gala in a cavernous ballroom draped in shimmering fabrics and filled with chatter that hummed like an orchestra tuning up, Zara sat beside Deo. The conversation was polite, the smiles flawless and rehearsed. Deo, ever the consummate socialite, talked about political aspirations and global philanthropy. Zara, imagine the impact if we, as a force, truly embrace the future. Our families, our brands, together we could pioneer a new era of prosperity, he stated with the kind of calculated charm that left little room for emotion. Zara's laugh was forced as she responded, yes, prosperity built on tradition and legacy. I must say, it sounds like the perfect script. Inwardly, she cringed at how the scripted words masked a lifeless narrative she no longer believed in. Across the marble floor, conversations echoed with empty accolades, and every glance reminded her that she was nothing more than an extension of her father's empire. Later that night, when the delicate clinking of champagne glasses faded into the quiet hum of midnight, Zara found solace in a secret rendezvous with Tari. They had arranged to meet at an inconspicuous rooftop lounge far from the prying eyes of the media. The city lights below danced like distant stars, while the warm night air wrapped them in gentle anonymity. Seated on a worn leather couch with a panoramic view of Lagos, Tari and Zara let the masks of their daily lives fall away. Do you ever feel like you're living a double life? Tari asked, his voice intimate as he gestured at the glittering horizon. Zara's eyes, reflecting both the neon gleam and a hint of vulnerability, answered silently for a few seconds before she spoke. Every day. I perform the role required by everyone's expectations, and it feels like I'm watching someone else live my life. She paused, swirling her drink. And then there's you, the one moment where I feel seen, truly seen, as if someone finally understands that there's more to me than what's on display. Tai's expression softened, and he leaned in as if sharing a secret. I've always believed that the truth often hides beneath layers of carefully constructed facades. The world worships titles, legacies, and wealth, but those aren't the measure of a person's worth. His hand brushed against hers, an almost imperceptible gesture that sent shivers down her spine. I see a strategist who knows the language of change, a woman who could rewrite every rule imposed on her. Their conversation drifted effortlessly from dreams of artistic rebellion to the bittersweet realities of corporate duty. At one point, Tai recalled a memory from his childhood. When I was little, I used to take apart old radios just to see what made the music come alive. I never cared about keeping them intact, I only cared about discovering the magic hidden inside. His smile was wistful, nostalgic. Zara interjected, and now, every time my laptop freezes or a campaign hits a wall, I imagine those old radios, and how sometimes, breaking them open reveals an unexpected harmony. Their laughter mingled with the nighttime chorus of the city, a sound that seemed to promise both danger and delight. Yet, beneath these moments of honest connection lay an unspoken fear, the threat of exposure. The secrecy of their encounters carried a weight. In hushed conversation later that week, when Zara met Tai at a quiet cafe tucked away in an unassuming neighborhood, she asked, "What if everyone finds out? What if my family learns that behind the perfect daughter is someone who dares to defy them?" Tai's gaze hardened slightly, and he replied, "The truth has its own rhythm. Once you let it out, it either disrupts the noise or becomes a part of it. Remember, Zara, authenticity is worth every risk. If you're meant to belong to a legacy of your choosing, then you must embrace the chaos that comes with it." Outside, rain began to tap lightly on the window panes, as if acknowledging the tumult in their hearts. Amid the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the muted whispers of other patrons, their conversation wound into depths of longing and rebellion that neither could ignore. "I'm tired of pretending," Zara admitted, voice trembling with determination. "I want to live by my own design, even if it means stepping away from everything I've known." Their discussion carried far past the closing hour. The interplay of laughter and tears, hope and despair, mingled with the ambient light of the early morning as they promised, "Tomorrow, we start building a life that is entirely ours." As they parted ways in the quiet drizzle, Zara felt a tremor of defiance growing inside her, a spark that would ignite further in the coming days. Every secret encounter with Tai deepened not only her desire for truth but also her resolve to challenge the predetermined roles everyone expected her to play. In that moment, two worlds collided, one defined by inherited duty, and another born of the courage to dream beyond the confines of legacy. Their shared vows, whispered amidst the clatter of an urban symphony, set the stage for what would be a storm of revelations, a journey where every stolen smile and hushed conversation would forever blur the lines between duty and desire. In the echoing quiet of a long-forgotten courtyard on the edge of Lagos, the fragile boundaries between right and wrong began to dissolve. Zara and Tai, emboldened by months of secret exchanges and furtive smiles, reached a defining moment that would change everything. It was on a night when the sky was a velvet canvas pierced by silver stars that Zara found herself alone on a secluded balcony. The city buzzed beyond, indifferent to the inner tumult of a woman caught between duty and desire. Her heart beat in syncopation with the distant hum of traffic, as if urging her to defy the norm. The buzz of her phone broke the reverie, a text from Tari. "If you're free tonight, meet me by the old lighthouse. Let's talk, really talk." Without hesitation, Zara donned a light jacket and slipped out the back door. The city felt strangely transformed under the spell of midnight, a canvas of muted neon reflections and hushed secrets. As she arrived at the aged structure, a relic once used for navigational beacons, the faint glow of its lamp guided her steps. Tari was already there, standing near the entrance, his figure softened by the interplay of shadow and light. He wore a simple shirt and a look that was simultaneously vulnerable and resolute. As Zara approached, he stepped forward and greeted her with a voice that trembled with anticipation. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," he said gently. Zara's answer was a quiet declaration. "I couldn't let fear dictate who I am. I need to know if this, us, is real." The wind tousled her hair as she spoke, each word reverberating against the ancient stone walls. Their conversation began with tentative confessions. "I've tried to bury my true self under expectations for so long," Zara admitted, her tone both husky and sincere. "But every moment with you has reminded me that there's beauty in breaking the rules." Tai's eyes shone with understanding and a touch of sorrow. "I know what it's like to live in a world that stifles the heart," he whispered. "For years, I fixed things for others, never daring to fix what was broken inside me. But now, meeting you, I feel that maybe some things aren't meant to be mended, they're meant to be celebrated." That delicate admission hung in the night air as their faces inched closer together. In a single, unguarded moment, the distance between them evaporated. Their first kiss was a collision of longing and liberation, a moment that defied caution and overthrew every barrier. Under the silent watch of the lighthouse's beam, the kiss deepened. It was a promise and a rebellion, a mingling of passion and pain. Yet, fate was often unkind in these moments of vulnerability. The quiet sanctuary shattered when a set of heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Zara pulled away abruptly. The sound of an angry voice rang out, "What is the meaning of this treachery?" A tall, imposing figure, Zara's father, accompanied by two security aides, stormed into the frame. His eyes, cold with betrayal, burned into Tai's face. "Tari Okoye," he spat, "you have disgraced this family with your insolence." The confrontation was instantaneous and brutal. Oba's voice thundered with fury as he demanded Zara end the affair immediately. "Either you sever this reckless liaison, or you face the full force of our legacy. I won't see my daughter tarnish everything our name represents by fraternizing with someone of your ilk." His tone carried centuries of tradition and a conviction that left no room for negotiation. Zara's voice, strong and unwavering despite the storm raging around her, answered, "I refuse to let my heart be governed by your rules." She stood tall, every word a declaration of self-sovereignty, even as her chest pounded with the shock of the confrontation. Tai's protest was measured but resolute. "I care for Zara more than you'll ever know. I'm not here to humiliate her or compromise your name. I'm here because I believe that together, we can define our own legacy." His tone oscillated between quiet defiance and raw emotion. For a moment, the world held its breath. But family honor and tradition are not so easily overturned. Oba's rage escalated. "This ends now. Zara, you have a choice, end this affair, or lose everything." The ultimatum fell like a guillotine. There was a charged silence that seemed to last an eternity, a moment when the past and future collided in the ruins of old expectations. In the midst of that crushing silence, tears streamed down Zara's face. "I never wanted to hurt you, father," she pleaded, her voice cracking with a mix of sorrow and determination. "But I cannot live a lie where I am forced to sacrifice who I truly am." Her declaration reverberated over the dark courtyard, mingling with the distant echoes of the city. Tai, still standing at her side, reached for her hand and squeezed it. "I will stand by you, come what may," he vowed, his words resolute enough to challenge the very foundations of her past. Oba's face contorted in anger as he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving behind a silence too profound for easy mending. As the distant sounds of footsteps retreated, Zara and Tai remained locked in a moment of disbelief, aware that nothing would ever be the same again. Their kiss, once a promise of freedom, had instead become the spark that ignited a conflagration of scandal, heartbreak, and eventual transformation. In the ensuing darkness of that turbulent night, Zara realized that the true cost of love might be high, but the price of living a lie was far greater. Every word exchanged, every stolen second, now bore the weight of both love and loss. And as the first hints of dawn broke over the horizon, she resolved to carry the scars of that fateful confrontation as emblems of the unyielding spirit that now defined her. The fallout from that explosive night was swift and unforgiving. By morning, headlines screamed of scandal, heiress in secret tryst with IT maverick, splashed across every major tabloid and digital outlet. Within the hallowed halls of Ehima Group, an uneasy dread replaced the usual buzz of triumph. Investors, once eager to back a legacy of assured success, now whispered anxieties about the potential cost of reputational damage. Zara trudged into the corporate headquarters with a heavy heart. The corridors that had once felt like avenues of opportunity now loomed like gaunt specters of judgment. Colleagues, once admirers of her prowess, now exchanged furtive glances, as if confirming unspoken suspicions. The boardroom meeting that day was punctuated by uneasy silence and pointed stares. As one executive hesitantly mentioned a major investor's decision to pull out, Zara's pulse pounded with a mixture of regret and defiance. Deo, who had once been her fiancé, confronted her in the hushed aftermath of the meeting. "Zara, what have you done?" he demanded in a cool yet seething tone, his eyes a mix of anger and disbelief. "This isn't just about you anymore. My family is being dragged into scandal." His voice cracked slightly as he struggled to balance anger with hurt. Zara met his gaze, her expression resolute. "I did not act to hurt you or your family, Deo. I acted because I needed to be true to myself. The truth may sting, but living a lie is far more painful." The words cut through the tension of the room, and for an instant, silence reigned. At the same time, investors reeled from the repercussions. Within hours, a major financial partner had withdrawn a $50 million commitment, a blow that rippled through Ehima Group like a shockwave. The stock prices began to tremble, and once loyal supporters of the venerable empire now questioned its invincibility. Oba Ehima, whose reputation had been built on an unyielding facade of power, now found his own image tarnished by the scandal. Outside the company's glass facade, Zara retreated into the anonymity of the city. In a modest hotel room away from the prying eyes of corporate boardrooms and media vans, she sat alone with her thoughts. The room was dimly lit, and the only sound was the distant rumble of night traffic. She replayed every conversation, every confrontational word, searching for clues on how she could salvage what remained of her identity. "I was always defined by others," she murmured to herself. "Now, I must define me." During the ensuing days, news conferences were held, statements were released, and Zara's image, carefully curated for years, fell like shattered glass. Even as the world seemed to close in with accusations and scandal, her heart beat with a stubborn rhythm of hope. Amid the chaos of boardroom crises and familial inquisition, she began to see the collapse as an opportunity, a chance to strip away the false identities and rediscover her unvarnished truth. In a particularly poignant moment, while addressing a small group of Ehima Group's employees during an emergency meeting, Zara said, "We have always prided ourselves on maintaining appearances. Today, we must be courageous enough to embrace our imperfections and rebuild on a foundation of authenticity." Her words, though barely heard over the murmurs of disillusionment, sparked a tentative flame of change among the beleaguered staff. Late one rainy night, as Zara sat in a quiet cafe in Yaba with a friend, the conversation turned raw and unfiltered. "Do you ever regret the choices that brought you here?" her friend asked softly between sips of steaming tea. Zara's reply was measured yet heartfelt. "Every moment feels like a cost, but I'm learning that truth, even if painful, is the only currency of real freedom. I'd rather pay that price than live in perpetual self-betrayal." The scandal, rather than silencing her, had become a crucible in which her resolve was tested and strengthened. Each setback, each public rebuke, ignited a fire inside her to reclaim not only her professional identity but also her personal autonomy. The collapse of the old regime was paving the way for something new, a chance to rebuild from the ashes of a crumbling legacy. Though the world outside branded her a pariah, Zara discovered allies in unexpected quarters. Young creatives who whispered about the dawn of a new era, seasoned professionals who admired her unwavering spirit, and even a few members of the once guarded corporate elite who now yearned for change. And amid these shifting alliances, the seeds of her next chapter were sown, a rebirth that would challenge the old order and set the stage for a transformation that was as bold as it was beautiful. By the time dawn broke over Lagos with a tentative promise of renewal, Zara had made the life-altering decision to step away from the gilded cage of Ehima Group. The familiar corridors, once thrumming with the assurance of legacy, now felt like relics of a past that no longer served her. With a heavy heart but a hopeful spirit, she submitted her resignation and left behind not only a company but an identity defined by others. She soon found solace in the vibrant, grassroots pulse of Lagos' creative scene. Renting a modest yet sun-drenched co-working loft in the heart of a bustling neighborhood, Zara began building something entirely her own, a boutique branding agency dedicated to empowering startups and minority-owned businesses. Named Brightforge, the agency represented a promise, a commitment to chiseling out beauty and authenticity from the raw materials of innovation. In her new haven, a room flooded with morning light, white walls adorned with inspirational quotes, and colorful sketches of ideas pinned like trophies, Zara transformed her anxiety into creative energy. One late afternoon, while brainstorming campaign ideas with her newly recruited team, she introduced a bold concept. What if we didn't just build brands, but ignite cultures? I want to see every project we touch become a beacon for those who dare to defy convention. Her team, a diverse mix of young designers, seasoned copywriters, and savvy digital strategists, responded with a fervor that reminded Zara of her long-lost passion. "We're not here to cater to the elite," declared Chika, the motion graphics wizard with an irreverent sense of humor. "We're here to make a statement that passion trumps privilege every single day." Amid the flurry of creative meetings and late-night brainstorming sessions, Zara still felt the weight of her past, a scarred history of broken legacies and shattered expectations. One humid afternoon, as she was rearranging art supplies in her new office, there came an unexpected knock at the door. In walked her father, Oba Ehima, his once imposing presence now tempered by remorse and uncertainty. "Zara," he began haltingly, his eyes fixed on the scattered canvases of her new reality. "I've been watching, and I see that you're building something real." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken confessions. "I was wrong," he continued softly, extending a handwritten note that read only, "I miss my daughter." For a long moment, Zara remained silent. The note was both an apology and a plea, a tentative bridge between the old world and the new one she had chosen. "You're not here to mend what was broken in our family's name," she finally said, her voice steady despite the flood of emotions. "You're here to remind me that even in the ruins, there can be new beginnings. But this is my creation now, my legacy as well as my freedom." The conversation deepened over several hours as father and daughter navigated a terrain of grudges, apologies, and the bittersweet realities of change. Oba's tone, once rigid and authoritarian, softened with the wisdom of hindsight. "I built my life on rules," he admitted, "but I see now that rules can be cages. I want you to write your own destiny, even if it means leaving behind everything I ever envisioned for you." In that modest room, amidst sketches of innovative brand campaigns and the sound of hopeful chatter from her team, Zara found not just refuge but the beginnings of a revolution. The small agency, in its creative clutter and soulful ambition, was more than a business, it was the embodiment of her new truth. Every client, every brand that would emerge from Brightforge, was a testament to the idea that passion, authenticity, and courage could redefine success in a world dictated by inherited legacies. As days turned into weeks, Brightforge garnered attention. Startups and small businesses, previously silenced by the monolithic pressures of corporate giants, began to reach out. With each project, Zara and her team wove stories of resilience, innovation, and unapologetic individuality. And even as she forged ahead, Zara kept a small, framed photograph on her desk, a memory of a time when she felt the crushing weight of expectation, now a reminder of how far she had come. It was during one of these quiet evenings in her new office that Zara, reflecting on all that had transpired, whispered to herself, "This is my room, my world. I am no longer a bystander in my own life." And with that affirmation, the room of her own blossomed into a space where the sparks of creativity and rebellion would forever burn bright. Just as Brightforge began to cement its reputation as a sanctuary for the brave and the bold, a new disruption stirred the winds of change in the tech landscape of Lagos. News broke that a groundbreaking startup, StreamSpark, was making waves in the digital world by championing a new model for artist-owned revenue. The twist in the tale, however, was one that Zara could hardly believe. Behind the meteoric rise of StreamSpark was none other than Tari, her former confidant, her secret flame, the very man who had challenged the borders of her old world. A series of heated reports revealed how Tari had quietly nurtured his vision while the corporate world focused on its conventional pursuits. He'd built StreamSpark from the ground up, converting his intimate understanding of systems into a platform that promised to empower creators and democratize content monetization. When Brightforge received an invitation to pitch for the global launch of StreamSpark, Zara's pulse quickened with a mix of professional ambition and the rekindling of personal memories. At Brightforge's office, the atmosphere became electric with speculation and excitement. In a brainstorming session that spilled late into the night, Zara gathered her core team around a large whiteboard. "This is not just another corporate gig," she declared with passion. "This is our chance to shape a future where creativity is owned by its makers. Let's show them that every system, no matter how entrenched, can be rebuilt with heart." Her words ignited a flurry of ideas. Chica tapped into her storytelling instincts, proposing a visual campaign that would turn every user's narrative into an epic of empowerment. Bayo, the data maestro, crunched numbers and trends until he uncovered a striking correlation. Communities with true creative freedom flourished. And Nena, the wordsmith, began drafting a tagline that resonated deeply: "Unchain the creator." As the team refined their pitch, Zara's thoughts drifted to the complexity of her feelings for Tari. In quiet moments between creative bursts, she remembered their hushed conversations, their shared dreams in the moonlight, moments now wrapped in the bittersweet knowledge that their lives had diverged so dramatically. Yet, there remained an unspoken promise, that despite the chaos of their past, each challenge was an opportunity for growth. On the day of the pitch, Zara arrived at the sleek headquarters of StreamSpark, her heart pounding in her chest as she stepped into a boardroom filled with bright-eyed investors, tech innovators, and a few old friends. Tari awaited her, his presence as commanding as ever. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of a shared history and the profound irony of their present collaboration. In a tone that balanced professionalism with raw authenticity, Zara launched into the presentation. "Today, we are not just unveiling a branding strategy, we are unleashing a revolution. Creativity is not a luxury, it is the very essence of our humanity." Slide after slide, she wove a narrative that challenged corporate dogma and celebrated the resilience of the human spirit. The investors listened, rapt with attention, as Zara's team outlined a vision that integrated data, storytelling, and immersive digital experiences. When the floor opened for questions, one skeptical board member inquired, "How can you guarantee that this campaign will reach the heart of your target audience?" Zara responded confidently, "We don't guarantee outcomes in creativity, what we promise is an honest, relentless pursuit of passion. When you invest in stories that reflect real lives, the response is not measured in numbers alone but in genuine impact." The room fell silent for a moment before bursts of applause filled the space. After the formal presentation, as the boardroom emptied and the investors mingled in hushed clusters, Zara found herself drawn to the quiet corner where Tari stood. His eyes conveyed both pride and a lingering question. "Your pitch was brilliant," he said softly, almost in disbelief. "You managed to capture the soul of what StreamSpark aims to be." Zara offered a wry smile. "I had a secret, an undercurrent of inspiration I couldn't ignore. It helped me see beyond the chaos." Their conversation meandered through recollections of past ambitions and shared frustrations with outdated systems. "I know we've traveled different paths," Tari admitted, "but today, in this moment, I can't help but wonder if our paths were meant to converge again." The bittersweet exchange left Zara both elated and pensive. As StreamSpark's team celebrated the successful pitch, the divide between her professional triumph and the personal puzzle of her heart became more acute. But amidst the clamor of success and the whispered promises of a future reimagined, one fact remained clear: the underdog had risen, and with it, so had a new era of hope for those daring enough to break the mold. The triumphant cheers following the pitch soon gave way to a moment of reckoning within the hallowed halls of tradition and legacy. As the success of the Bright Forged StreamSpark collaboration spread like wildfire through corporate channels, a long-expected call came from Oba Ehima himself. The man who had once dictated every facet of Zara's destiny now sought to reclaim her, and perhaps, in the process, reclaim a piece of his own pride. "Zara," his voice boomed over the secure phone line, "I have watched your ascent with both pride and regret. The time has come for you to return to the family business, but on your terms. I offer you the role of CEO to lead our most crucial project." His words were delivered with the same authoritative cadence that had once governed her every move. For a long moment, Zara was silent. The prospect of rejoining Ehima Group was tantalizing, yet it also represented the very chain she had fought so fervently to break. In a quiet cafe the next morning, she met with her most trusted advisor, Chiamaka, to contemplate the proposal. "He's not asking for you back as a puppet, but as a leader," Chiamaka argued, eyes alight with cautious optimism. "They know that you are the only one who can steer the ship into a new era. This isn't just an invitation, it's a challenge, to transform a legacy from within." Torn by conflicting loyalties, Zara spent restless nights weighing her options. The corporate world she was born into was still seductively familiar, yet every fiber of her being echoed the freedom she had discovered at Bright Forge. One evening, as a gentle rain pattered against her window, she penned a letter, a confidential note meant for her father, stating, "I appreciate your faith in my abilities. But any return must come with a commitment to change, to prove that our legacy can be redefined by merit, not mere tradition." Oba's reply was measured yet laden with emotion. "I am prepared to meet you halfway, Zara. We will not be the same company as before. Let this be a new beginning, a merger of the past and the future." The conversation that followed was a long, arduous negotiation, a collision between the old guard and a new vision. In heated boardroom discussions, Zara found herself orchestrating a delicate dance of compromise with once aloof family executives. In one particularly intense session, after a proposal was met with skeptical silence, Oba leaned forward and said, "I know you believe in your way, daughter, but this family was built on stability. How can you assure us that your reform won't lead to chaos?" Zara met his gaze steadily. "The only chaos I see is the stifling stagnation of unchallenged power. True stability comes from evolution, from daring to embrace change even if it disrupts our comfort." The tension in the room broke into murmurs of reluctant admiration. In a private moment later that day, standing before a panoramic view of the city from an executive suite, Zara turned to her father. "I don't want to be your daughter's shadow, hiding under a legacy that isn't mine. I want to build something new, a synthesis of tradition and innovation that reflects who we truly are." Oba's stern features softened as he replied, "Then show me, Zara. Prove that you can lead not just with authority, but with vision and empathy." That conversation set in motion a transformation unlike anything the Ehima legacy had witnessed before. Zara began aligning Bright Forge with the family's broader portfolio, ensuring that every decision was measured by merit and potential, not merely by who sat at the head of the table. The friction between old conventions and new ideals sparked debates, heated meetings, and moments of breakthrough that resonated far beyond the boardroom walls. Meanwhile, Tari's successful venture with StreamSpark continued to garner accolades, and his presence in Zara's life became a subtle counterpoint to the weight of inherited duty. In the quiet moments before dawn, when challenges loomed large in the corporate labyrinth, she remembered his words, that truth, even if messy, was the only path to genuine change. As Zara's vision began to reshape the family empire from within, she found that the struggle for redemption was not about recapturing a stolen past, but about forging a dynamic future in which every voice, every idea, and every spark of creativity played a part. The world of legacy was no longer unyielding, it was a canvas waiting for her brushstrokes. The day of the final pitch had arrived, a moment where the convergence of past trials and future aspirations was set to be decided in a boardroom filled with discerning eyes and relentless skepticism. Zara had prepared for this moment with a singular focus, to prove once and for all that merit, passion, and the courage to break free from inherited shackles were the true measures of success. In a sleek conference hall overlooking the bustling metropolis of Lagos, the stage was set for a final showdown between competing agencies, including the seasoned giant of Ehima Group and the scrappy, innovative team at Bright Forge. The room buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and tension as high-ranking executives took their seats. Zara stepped up to the podium, her presence commanding and resolute. Dressed in a midnight blue suit that symbolized both elegance and rebellion, she began by addressing the audience with a calm yet impassioned voice. "Today, we present not merely a branding proposal, but a vision of transformation. Our goal is to create a campaign that not only reaches your audience but fundamentally changes the narrative about creativity, ownership, and the future of digital content." Slide after slide, she unfolded a story, a narrative that wove together the journeys of real people struggling against powerful institutions, of innovators whose ideas lit up the darkness of outdated norms. Her words were interspersed with carefully selected visuals, raw, unfiltered images of local artists, community gatherings, and bold infographics that showcased how authenticity could drive both emotion and engagement. During a Q&A session that followed her presentation, one of the board members, an austere figure in a tailored suit, leaned forward and asked, "Ms. Ehima, can you truly claim that your approach will yield results when the market is already saturated with similar messages?" Zara's eyes flashed with a quiet intensity as she replied, "The difference between a message and a movement is not in the saturation of words, but in the resonance of truth. We are not here to mimic a trend, we are here to set a new benchmark for what it means to be genuine in an era of artificial narratives." The room fell silent as her words lingered, a testament to the bold vulnerability and strategic brilliance that had become her hallmark. When the final decision was announced, a dual award that recognized both Ehima Group's institutional influence and Bright Forge's innovative, grassroots approach, a hush spread over the assembled crowd. As the clapping began, the tension melted into a collective sense of triumph and possibility. After the meeting, in a quieter corridor away from the flashing cameras and hushed discussions, Zara found Tari waiting. Their eyes met, a torrent of shared history, unspoken apologies, and a fragile hope shining between them. "You were always more than you let on," Tari said softly, his voice carrying both praise and a subtle challenge. "Today, you proved that legacy is not something you inherit, it's something you forge." Zara allowed herself a brief, genuine smile. "And you reminded me that even when the rules seem set in stone, there is always room for change. I couldn't have done this without knowing that someone believed in a different future." In that brief exchange, standing amid the remnants of old glories and new possibilities, they recognized that their battles were not simply personal, they were emblematic of an era on the cusp of transformation. The boardroom, the media frenzy, and even the lingering shadows of scandal had all led to this moment, the final bid for a future that defied expectation. The day of the final pitch had arrived, a moment where the convergence of past trials and future aspirations was set to be decided in a boardroom filled with discerning eyes and relentless skepticism. Zara had prepared for this moment with a singular focus, to prove once and for all that merit, passion, and the courage to break free from inherited shackles were the true measures of success. In a sleek conference hall overlooking the bustling metropolis of Lagos, the stage was set for a final showdown between competing agencies, including the seasoned giant of Ehima Group and the scrappy, innovative team at Brightforge. The room buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and tension as high-ranking executives took their seats. Zara stepped up to the podium, her presence commanding and resolute. Dressed in a midnight blue suit that symbolized both elegance and rebellion, she began by addressing the audience with a calm yet impassioned voice. "Today, we present not merely a branding proposal, but a vision of transformation. Our goal is to create a campaign that not only reaches your audience but fundamentally changes the narrative about creativity, ownership, and the future of digital content." Slide after slide, she unfolded a story, a narrative that wove together the journeys of real people struggling against powerful institutions, of innovators whose ideas lit up the darkness of outdated norms. Her words were interspersed with carefully selected visuals, raw, unfiltered images of local artists, community gatherings, and bold infographics that showcased how authenticity could drive both emotion and engagement. During a Q&A session that followed her presentation, one of the board members, an austere figure in a tailored suit, leaned forward and asked, "Ms. Ehima, can you truly claim that your approach will yield results when the market is already saturated with similar messages?" Zara's eyes flashed with a quiet intensity as she replied, "The difference between a message and a movement is not in the saturation of words, but in the resonance of truth. We are not here to mimic a trend, we are here to set a new benchmark for what it means to be genuine in an era of artificial narratives." The room fell silent as her words lingered, a testament to the bold vulnerability and strategic brilliance that had become her hallmark. When the final decision was announced, a dual award that recognized both Ehima Group's institutional influence and Brightforge's innovative, grassroots approach, a hush spread over the assembled crowd. As the clapping began, the tension melted into a collective sense of triumph and possibility. After the meeting, in a quieter corridor away from the flashing cameras and hushed discussions, Zara found Tari waiting. Their eyes met, a torrent of shared history, unspoken apologies, and a fragile hope shining between them. "You were always more than you let on," Tari said softly, his voice carrying both praise and a subtle challenge. "Today, you proved that legacy is not something you inherit, it's something you forge." Zara allowed herself a brief, genuine smile. "And you reminded me that even when the rules seem set in stone, there is always room for change. I couldn't have done this without knowing that someone believed in a different future." In that brief exchange, standing amid the remnants of old glories and new possibilities, they recognized that their battles were not simply personal, they were emblematic of an era on the cusp of transformation. The boardroom, the media frenzy, and even the lingering shadows of scandal had all led to this moment, the final bid for a future that defied expectation. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment your thoughts and share. See you in the next story. AFRITALES by Moonlight.